For World Autism Awareness Day, we have called in some friends, family members, and teachers to have an honest and transparent conversation about autism. In this episode, it is all about an extraordinary teacher who have a pertinent story to tell, a story to share, and to inspire. My name is Marvin, and joining me here is Datin Rani Alexander.
Hello everyone, I'm Datin Rani Alexander and a teacher by profession, and I have been a volunteer at SMARTER Brunei for the past 7 years or so. It was always my interest to work with children with special needs and contribute something to the Brunei community where I raised my children, and we have lived for many years and have many happy memories to share.
That's good. Okay, Datin Rani. May I call you Teacher Rani?
Sure.
Alright, Teacher Rani. Can we rewind a bit? So how did you find out about SMARTER?
It was an accidental meeting I had with late Malay Haji Abdullah on a social function. He was talking very passionately about the autism center he was running, and I was amazed to hear the things he was doing at the center. And as I mentioned earlier, I always wanted to work with special needs children. So when I expressed my desire, he asked me to come and have a look. So he took me for a brief look around the place, and that's when I decided to join SMARTER.
So I guess that's where your journey started.
Yes, very much.
So how do you find it?
Yeah, it was very satisfying, very gratifying. In the beginning, I found it a bit tough. I always wondered whether I'm doing any good, making enough changes to bring about positive changes in the students. But later I settled down. I got to know how to deal with them, and I have progressed from then on.
So, in your own words, what is autism?
Before joining SMARTER Brunei, I had not much come into contact with autistic people or individuals with autism. And coming in contact with them, I came to realize it's a very difficult and challenging disorder that the children and adults with autism have to cope with. And of course, I also know the common factors that they have challenges in socializing, in verbal communication. And more than anything, another factor is that their behavior and thinking does not conform to the normal expected norms of social behavior. So they're usually considered different. But personally, I realized another thing. These children are very emotional, very loving and affectionate. And as a caregiver or teacher, if you're sensitive enough to pick out the mood changes or the behavioral changes they have, I think we can make a difference.
Teacher Rani, for our next question, what did you know or think about autism before working or volunteering with SMARTER Brunei? And how has that changed after being with SMARTER?
As I mentioned earlier, I didn't have much contact with an autistic person or didn't deal with autism prior to joining SMARTER Brunei. And in my mindset, what I thought of autism was that it was a disability, a learning disability. And I was fortunate enough when I joined SMARTER Brunei to have been mentored by late Malay Haji Abdullah. And I came to realize how wrong my perception was. Now I stand corrected that autism is not a disability, but people with autism are just differently abled. And I was amazed and surprised to see the amount of talents the students at SMARTER have. Some of them are very artistic, produced very good works of art. Others were very good musicians and singers. There were a handful of them who were high achievers in maths and science.
So every kid is different, right?
Yeah, every kid is different. And on the whole, I realized they were a gifted group. And SMARTER Brunei just brought out their hidden talents and made them give in their best.
For our next question, describe your first day at SMARTER Brunei.
My first day at SMARTER Brunei, like the first day at any workplace or organization, was very, I didn't know what to expect and what I was in for. So as I came in on the first day, I was greeted by late Malay Haji Abdullah. I should say rather very sternly, and I was a bit scared. And he took me around and gave me a briefing. I can't call it a briefing, it was a lot of information.
Information overload then.
Yes, it was information overload. I was rather overwhelmed, and I don't think I registered much that day. And it went on, but later in the day I realized it was one of the best days I ever had in my life. And the reason being, I was made to feel very welcome by the staff and the students alike. And that is one of the most beautiful things of SMARTER community, the sense of belonging they give you. And I'm sure, like me, all new students and teachers have experienced this.
For our next question, Datin Rani, what has been the most rewarding experience you have with the kids?
Like, I have been here for almost 7 years, as I said earlier, and I can't just pick out any one instance as such, but there has been many, even over the days, many small instances that has been very touching and heartwarming for me. But I'll just go back to a chronological order and pick out one of the first instances, a very simple one. When I first joined, I was put in charge of the early development class.
We were together, right?
Yes, and it was a very tough one.
Very tough one, as I can remember.
And I didn't know what I was doing there, because I often wondered whether I was even an effective teacher and whether I was good enough to bring about any positive change in the students. And I was struggling. So after a few weeks, I thought I have to make a decision whether I need to stay on or not. So during that time, I went on leave back home and came back. When I joined back, I came back with a lot of trepidation because I didn't know what to expect. And as I entered the place in the morning, that's a time when the students have the sensory time and they were all playing. And one of my students saw me from far, and there was so much of joy on his face. He left everything what he was doing and came running with outstretched arms.
I know the feeling, sure.
Yeah, so I squatted down and he almost choked me, hugged me and said, "Teacher, I miss you." And this was followed by two more. And even the shyest of the lot, who was non-verbal, came near me and nudged and tried to be close to me and held my hand. That's the moment I thought I will stay on and I will make a difference with whatever I can do for them. And this was one of the many. And from then on, this was one of my first classes. So I'm very close to them. Though they passed on to other classes, I always monitored their progress. And I was very pleased to see them progressing and blossoming into young adults. And they are not in Edge anymore, as they have crossed the age of 12. They are either in Bacha or joined the normal stream school. But I do see them once in a way, for social functions, and I'm very pleased to see their progress.
For our last question, Datin Rani, in your opinion, is it hard to be accepting and inclusive for kids with autism?
Okay, I would like to answer yes and a no for that, because it all depends on the awareness of the society and the education the people have regarding autism. For me, before joining SMARTER, when I didn't know much about autism, if a child with autism and behavioral problems misbehaved, I would have thought he's being naughty or being badly brought up. I would have been very judgmental about him or her. But after being aware about the problems and how to deal with it, I can be inclusive. It's not very difficult for me to be inclusive. So as I said, it depends on the awareness of the society and how educated they are regarding the problems of autism. And here I would like to mention one of the incidents I always, remember regarding the school holidays in Brunei. When the mainstream school has school holidays, SMARTER Brunei allows the siblings of the children at SMARTER to join along and help them. And I have noticed this many times. Small as they are, between the ages of say 7 to 10, it was very touching to watch how they help and support their siblings with autism, how they care and love. Many times I felt so touched the way they care for the siblings. This familial support and community feeling which Brunei has is one of its merits of society. And I think it's not very difficult for Brunei to be an inclusive society.
So we have reached the end of our talk. Any inspiring words that you give to the public?
Okay, I'm going to say something out of the box. I think however young or old you are, everyone, whatever position you hold, high or low, I think every person needs to have some experience with people with special needs in some field so that they can be a more inclusive society and they can contribute to the well-being of people with special needs and be more accepting. Thank you.
Happy World Autism Awareness Day!